stand in front of the mirror, still as glass. My reflection looks like a stranger. Perfect hair, flawless makeup, the kind of bride people post about. But my hands won't stop shaking. The wedding planner's voice comes softly through the door. "Caroline, it's time," I nod even though she can't see me. My throat feels tight. I glance at my phone for what must be the 15th time in 20 minutes. No new messages. Not from Mom. Not from Dad. Not even from Logan. 3 empty seats wait for them out there. Right in the front row. I told the florist to leave them open, just in case they change their minds. But deep down, I already know they won't. The music starts. The doors open. And 100 faces turn toward me. Every step I take down that aisle feels heavier than the last. Their eyes sting. Pity looks good on no one, but today, I'm surrounded by it. When I finally reach Ethan, he takes my hands in his. His palms are warm, steady, real. "I'm here," he whispers. "You're not alone." For a second, I almost believe him. Because right now, in this perfect fairy tale moment, my parents' empty seats are louder than the violin music, and their absence burns brighter than the white roses in my bouquet. But if I'd known what was really coming, I would have realized this wasn't the last time they'd make me feel invisible. After the ceremony, people kept saying how beautiful everything was. The flowers, the music, the dress. No one mentioned the empty seats. I smiled for the photos. I danced when the band played. But every time I looked toward the doorway, a tiny part of me still hoped they'd appear. That maybe Mom would walk in late, pretending nothing happened, and Dad would joke about traffic. They didn't. By the time dessert was served, I'd already stopped checking my phone. Still, I caught myself glancing toward it, like a reflex built from years of waiting for their approval. Ethan's mom hugged me so tight after the vows, I could barely breathe. "You're one of us now, sweetheart," she said. It should have comforted me. But somehow, it only reminded me how it feels to finally belong to a family that isn't yours. Later that night, when the lights dimmed and the laughter faded, I stepped outside barefoot, the cool grass under my feet. The stars above felt closer than my parents ever did. I scrolled through my call log again. Nothing. I stared at the blank screen until my reflection blurred into the dark. Then I whispered to no one. Why wasn't I ever enough? But 2 years later, that silence broke. And the reason they finally called me would change everything. 2 years passed before I heard their voices again. By then, I'd stopped expecting them to reach out. I'd built my company from scratch. Long nights, too much coffee, and a team that believed in me more than my family ever did. We'd just closed a deal I once thought was impossible. $21 million. Validation written in ink. When my team popped the champagne, I laughed with them, but part of me drifted away. Back to that wedding night. To the 3 empty seats that had carved something permanent inside me. Jen, my creative director, raised her glass to the woman who built something out of nothing. Everyone cheered. And for once I felt seen. I should have been celebrating. But that night, lying in bed beside Ethan, I found myself scrolling through social media. There they were, Mom, Dad, and Logan, smiling at a fundraiser. Matching outfits, champagne glasses. The caption read, "Family tradition continues." I zoomed in on their faces. They looked happy, whole, like the daughter they never had didn't exist. And as I stared at that photo, I realized something sharp and painful. They didn't just forget me. They erased me. I locked my phone, turned off the screen, and whispered to myself, "Let them." But deep down, I knew their story with me wasn't over. Because people like them, they only remember you when they need something. And when they finally did, their call came with one word that made my stomach drop. Emergency. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon. I was halfway through emails when my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in 5 years. Mom. For a full minute, I just stared at the screen. My chest tightened, fingers frozen above the keyboard. Part of me wanted to let it ring. Another part of me, the child who once begged for attention, still hoped it was an apology. I answered. "Hello?" Caroline, her voice hadn't changed. Still sharp, still controlled, with that hint of forced sweetness she used whenever she needed something. "We need to talk," she said. "Family meeting tomorrow." I almost laughed. A family meeting, after 5 years of silence. "Now it's a family?" I asked quietly. "What's this about?" She hesitated. And in the background, I heard Dad's voice. "Tell her it's important." My throat went dry. Wasn't my wedding important? My business? What's so urgent now? Mom's tone shifted, low and uneasy. "It's complicated. Financial issues. We need to discuss it as a family." That was it. Not "how have you been?" Not "we miss you." Just "we need you." I ended the call before she could say more. Then I sat there staring at the phone in my hand. Of course. They'd seen the car I bought, the press coverage, the deal. Now suddenly, I was worth calling again. Ethan found me still sitting at my desk. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. Apparently my family remembers I exist. He didn't need to ask why. He just looked at me for a long moment, then said quietly, "Remember who you are when you walk in that house." The next day, I did. And what waited behind that front door was worse than I ever imagined. The next morning, I sat in my new Porsche, parked outside the house I grew up in. It looked smaller than I remembered. Too clean, too perfect, like a museum built to honor a family I was never really part of. For a moment, I just sat there gripping the steering wheel, feeling my heartbeat in my palms. The last time I'd stood on that porch was 6 years ago, the day I told them I was engaged. Mom had smiled politely, like she was forcing herself to be supportive. Dad checked his watch the whole time. And Logan, he'd congratulated me without even looking up from his phone. That was my family. I stared through the windshield now, watching the curtains move. They were expecting me. Not out of love, out of need. My phone buzzed. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. "Remember who you are," his text said. "And call me if you need backup." I smiled faintly. Backup. Yeah, I might. Before stepping out, I scrolled through my email one last time. At the top was a new message from Naomi Blake, the investor who'd believed in my company when no one else did. "Your worth isn't measured by the people who failed to see it." Her words steadied me. I slipped the phone into my purse and got out. The air smelled like freshly cut grass and old memories. When I reached the front steps, the door opened before I could knock. Mom and Dad stood there. Their faces shifted, first surprise, then something colder. Dad's eyes darted past me to the car in the driveway. "You've done well for yourself," he said. Not hello. Not "we missed you." Just that. I forced a smile. "Yes," I said quietly. But when I stepped inside that house, I realized I hadn't been invited home. I'd been summoned. The dining room smelled the same, lemon polish and old tension. Mom had arranged everything perfectly, as always. Her pearls glinted under the chandelier. Dad sat at the head of the table, posture straight, expression unreadable. And then there was Logan, my brother, the golden child. He looked tired, expensive suit, wrinkled sleeves, fake smile. "Caroline," he said, nodding like we'd seen each other last week instead of 5 years ago. "Logan." His wife Hannah offered a stiff wave. There was a photo album open in front of her, which felt strange, until I saw what was inside. Pictures. Their kids. My nieces. Smiling at birthday parties I'd never been invited to. Dad cleared his throat, hands folded like this was a business meeting. "Let's get straight to it," he said. "Logan's mortgage is behind. Tuition for the twins hasn't been paid. The bank has started calling." I said nothing. Mom sighed, her voice soft and carefully emotional. "We've done everything we could, Caroline, but we're out of options." My heart went cold. "You want money?" I said flatly. Dad didn't even flinch. "It's a loan. You're successful now. Family helps family." He slid a folder across the table. The paperwork was already filled out. All it needed was my signature. I stared at it for a long moment, then looked at each of them. Mom's practiced guilt, Dad's entitlement, Logan's silence, all of them waiting for the same thing, my compliance. "Think about your nieces," Mom whispered. "They shouldn't suffer because of Financial difficulties. Her voice almost broke on the word difficulties, but not enough to fool me. That was the moment it hit me. They hadn't called me back into the family. They'd called me into their debt. I stared at the papers on the table, the ink, the signatures, the quiet assumption that I'd just say yes. For a moment, I almost laughed. After all those years of silence, they didn't even bother pretending it was about love. I looked up slowly. Where were you at my wedding? The question landed like a slap. Logan blinked. What? My wedding, I repeated. 2 years ago. Where were you? Mom's hand fluttered to her throat. Sweetheart, we told you. Logan had that event with his firm. It wasn't convenient, Dad added, like he was talking about missing a dinner reservation. I nodded slowly, feeling something harden in my chest. But this is? Silence filled the room. You didn't come when I needed you most, I said, my voice steady now. But the moment you see my success on the news, suddenly I'm family again. Dad's jaw tightened. That's not fair. No, I said. What's not fair is raising a daughter you only remember when she's useful. Logan slammed his hand on the table. You always had to make everything about yourself. Always proving how much better you were. Better? I shot back. No, Logan, just seen. Something you never had to fight for. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We're still your parents, she whispered. Despite everything. I looked at her, really looked. The woman who never said I'm proud of you. The man who called me too emotional. The brother who got everything I earned. Your parents a name, I said quietly. Not in love. And for the first time, I saw it. Fear. They needed me more than I ever needed them. The room felt smaller by the second. Or maybe it was just their confidence shrinking. For once, no one spoke. The silence didn't belong to them anymore. It belonged to me. I sat straighter, meeting Dad's eyes. You didn't build this success, I said. You don't get to share it. He leaned forward, trying to keep his voice calm. We're not asking for charity, Caroline. We're asking for help. Family helps family. Mom nodded quickly. The interest rate is fair, she said, as if I'd asked. Logan smirked, crossing his arms. Come on, Caro. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Blood's thicker than water, remember? That did it. I stood slowly, deliberately, every motion making them flinch a little. Their eyes followed me as I placed my briefcase on the table and clicked it open. They thought I was reaching for my checkbook. But instead, I pulled out a single folder and slid it toward them. I've made a decision, I said. Dad frowned. What's this? The Rivera Media Foundation, I said. $16 million to help young women in digital media. Girls who never got the applause I didn't get. Logan's voice cracked. 16 million? Legally protected, I added. Not 1 cent for anyone who sees family as a transaction. The silence was deafening. Mom's mouth opened, but no words came out. Dad just stared at the paper like it had betrayed him. You're wasting it on strangers, Logan said finally, his face red. No, I replied. I'm investing in girls who deserve better than what I got. And when I picked up my phone to show them the recording I'd made of the entire meeting, the look on their faces told me they finally understood. This time I was untouchable. I held up my phone. The recording app glowed bright red on the screen. 36 minutes and counting. I've recorded every word, I said quietly. Every guilt trip, every threat, every manipulation. Just in case anyone tries to twist this story later. Mom's lips parted in shock. Dad went pale. Even Logan's arrogance faltered for a second. I closed my briefcase, the click of the latch echoing like a door closing on years of history. Then I stood. Caroline, wait, Dad said, his voice finally breaking through his pride. We need that money. I paused at the doorway but didn't turn around. No, Dad, what you needed was to show up. At my graduation, at my company launch, at my wedding. The words came steady, not angry, just honest. But that chance is gone now. Behind me, Mom started crying. The same sound that used to control me, make me apologize for things I never did. But this time, it didn't reach me. I turned the doorknob. You had your chance to be my family, I said. Now I know what that word really means. The door shut softly behind me. And the sound, that quiet click, felt like freedom. Outside, the evening sun hit the hood of my Porsche, gleaming silver and strong. I slid into the driver's seat and exhaled, my hands steady on the wheel. My phone buzzed. Ethan. "It's done," I said when I answered. "How bad?" "Exactly what we expected." He was silent for a moment, then said softly, "I'm proud of you." As I drove away from that house for the last time, I realized something powerful. Sometimes walking away is the revenge. That night, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages, missed calls, all from my family. I didn't need to read them to know what they said. Apologies mixed with guilt, guilt mixed with anger, and somewhere between all that, fear. I placed the phone face down on my nightstand. For once, I didn't feel the pull to answer. The silence didn't hurt anymore. It felt like peace. When morning came, sunlight poured through the blinds. Ethan handed me a mug of coffee, smiling softly. "They're already calling your office," he said. "Security handled it," I smiled. Predictable. Then I got ready for the board meeting, the one that would finalize the launch of the Rivera Media Foundation. 12 brilliant women sat around that table, each one of them there because someone finally believed in them. As I presented the scholarship plan, I could feel my chest tighten, not with pain but with pride. This was my legacy, not money, not power, purpose. When the meeting ended, the press release went live. My phone buzzed again. This time, notifications from journalists, congratulations from friends, messages from young women saying thank you. And then one final message popped up. From an unknown number. It said only, "We're proud of you," no name. But I didn't need one. I smiled, closed my laptop, and whispered to myself, "I'm proud of me too." As I stepped outside into the crisp air, the world felt new, lighter, real. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. And in that silence, I finally heard my own voice. 6 months later, I was invited to speak at a women's leadership event in Seattle. My name was printed on banners, my company logo glowed behind me, and a crowd of young entrepreneurs filled the hall, hanging on every word. When it ended, people lined up to meet me. Most faces were strangers, bright, kind, full of hope. But then I saw them, standing near the exit. Mom, Dad, Logan. They looked smaller than I remembered. Not older, just diminished, like the weight of their choices had finally caught up to them. For a moment, no one moved. Then Mom stepped forward. "Caroline," she whispered, "we read about the foundation. What you've done is remarkable." Her eyes searched mine, waiting for the version of me who used to beg for approval. But that woman was gone. I smiled politely. "Thank you," I said simply. Dad nodded awkwardly. Logan couldn't even look at me. I didn't feel anger anymore, not even sadness. Just clarity. They hadn't changed. But I had. A volunteer called me from across the room. I turned to leave. "Caroline," Mom said softly, "can we—" I stopped her with a gentle smile. "Take care of yourselves," I said. Then I walked away, not out of bitterness, but because I didn't need their love to feel whole anymore. Outside, the evening sky was glowing pink, the same color as the roses from my wedding day. For the first time, I didn't think of the empty seats. I thought of every person who did show up, and of the woman who finally showed up for herself. I used to think closure came from hearing "I'm sorry." Now I know. It comes from saying "I'm free."